They used to laugh at him, not behind his back, but right to his face. Every morning, like clockwork, he showed up with a mop in one hand and a broom in the other, dressed in a worn-out uniform and a tired smile. To the tenants of the high-rise office building, he was just the cleaner, someone invisible, forgettable. They'd sip their lattes, type away on their laptops, and whisper jokes as he quietly swept the marble floors they walked on. But what they didn't see was the man behind the mop. What they didn't know was that he was watching, learning, planning. He never complained. He never corrected them. He just kept his head down and worked, day in, day out, while listening to conversations, reading abandoned newspapers, and soaking up every bit of knowledge he could. To most, this building was a workplace. To him, it was a classroom. And every hallway he cleaned was another step towards something bigger. He came from nothing, no fancy degree, no wealthy family backing him. Just grit, patience, and a dream that no one believed in, until one day, everything changed. A single moment flipped the script. The same people who mocked him now walked past a plaque with his name on it. The same floor he once scrubbed. Now it's part of his empire. But how did he do it? What did he see that no one else did? And what was the turning point that took him from janitor to owner? The story you're about to hear isn't just about success. It's about resilience, vision, and the quiet power of belief. Stay with me, because what happens next will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about rising from the bottom. For years, he was invisible to the world around him. Every day, he did the same job, cleaning the offices, sweeping the hallways, and mopping the floors. To the building's tenants, he was no more than a part of the scenery, someone to be overlooked. But he never let their indifference get to him. Instead, he focused on the people who walked past him every day, the ones with their suits and expensive shoes, the ones who had something he didn't, a piece of the world he dreamed of owning. He studied them closely, how they carried themselves, how they talked, what they did when they thought no one was watching. It wasn't just about the money or the power. They didn't have those things by chance. They had something deeper, something he could sense, even if he couldn't name it at the time. It was the way they walked with purpose, the way they handled problems with calm confidence. It was something more than just ambition. It was a mindset. The building was filled with these people, successful men and women, and every single one of them had a story. He knew that. He overheard enough meetings to know how they spoke about their successes, their investments, and their plans for the future. But he didn't envy them. Instead, he started seeing them as pieces in a bigger puzzle, a puzzle that, over time, he'd figure out how to solve. He'd often pause as he pushed his mop down the hallway, watching the doors to the top-floor offices. It was a world he could only dream of, until one day, something changed. A simple act, a small decision, would set everything in motion. But for now, that piece of the story was still hidden. One evening, as he finished his shift, he overheard a conversation in one of the high-rise offices. It wasn't the usual chatter about meetings or deadlines. This was different. Two men, deep in discussion, talked about a major investment opportunity that could change everything, an office building, not unlike the one he worked in, that was about to be sold for a fraction of its worth. It wasn't just a building. It was a gold mine waiting to be unlocked. They spoke of renovations, upgrades, and the millions to be made with just a few strategic changes. It was the kind of opportunity that most people would overlook. But not him. He recognized the potential instantly. The building might not have been in the best shape, but he saw what others didn't. A chance to flip it, to turn it into something far more valuable. But the catch? The price was steep. Only someone with deep pockets, a network, and the right connections could take advantage of it. It seemed impossible, until the idea began to take root. He didn't have the money, the connections, or the influence, but he had something they didn't, the knowledge of the building itself. Every corner, every elevator, every inch of space was etched into his memory. He could navigate it in the dark, could tell you what each floor needed just by the sound of footsteps echoing through the hall. He could see what could be transformed and what was already a hidden asset. He knew its pulse, and that was more than any investor could claim. But how could he, someone who was dismissed as just the janitor, make a move in a world where power and money ruled? There was no clear path forward, only uncertainty. And yet, a small spark of hope flickered inside him, hope that somehow the right opportunity would present itself. But the clock was ticking, and the building's future was being decided without him. Days turned into weeks, and every time he walked through the halls of the building, the weight of his dream pressed harder on his chest. He knew he couldn't stay in the shadows forever. The building was on the edge of change, and he was running out of time. He began to see the other side of the coin. The higher-ups in the company were already discussing plans, finalizing deals, and making decisions without him. His window of opportunity was closing fast. One evening, as he pushed his mop down the hallway, something unexpected happened. A familiar figure, one of the men he had overheard in the meeting weeks ago, stopped him. It was the senior executive who had been talking about the building's future. His sharp eyes scanned him, almost like he was looking through him. The executive paused, then said, "You've been here for a while, haven't you? Cleaning up after us, but you seem to know this building better than most." The remark felt like a thinly veiled test, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The man was watching him, really watching him. He stammered, unsure of how to respond. He couldn't let on that he had been eavesdropping on conversations, studying their every move, but he couldn't lie either. So he said, "I've been here long enough to know where things could improve." The executive smirked, a glint of curiosity in his eyes. "You think you know how to make this place better? How?" The challenge hung in the air like a trap waiting to snap shut. He had only moments to make a decision. Could he step forward, take the risk, and show this man that he had more than just knowledge of the building? Or would this moment slip away, leaving him stuck in the shadows forever? The tension was unbearable. The words hung between them, heavy with expectation. The executive's gaze never wavered, and for a moment, it felt like the world around them had quieted, as if waiting for an answer. The janitor's heart pounded in his chest, the weight of his next words carrying the potential to change everything. He took a deep breath, his mind racing. This could be his shot, but if he said the wrong thing, it would be over. He was just the cleaner, after all. Who would believe he had the skills to take this place to the next level? He took a leap of faith, his voice steady. "I think this building has untapped potential. I see spaces that could be redesigned, services that could be improved. The tenants are underutilizing what's available. You're not seeing the bigger picture." The executive raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "And why should I believe you? What makes you think you have a plan?" Before the janitor could answer, a loud bang echoed through the corridor, a sharp, sudden sound that made both men turn toward the elevator doors. It was an unusual noise for this hour, and the janitor's instincts kicked in. He knew something wasn't right. The executive's demeanor shifted instantly. "We need to go, now." Without waiting for an explanation, the executive led the way down the hall toward the elevator. The janitor, confused but unable to resist, followed closely behind. As the doors slid open, they stepped into an empty elevator. But as they descended, the tension only grew, the silence inside the elevator thickening with unspoken questions. The elevator stopped abruptly. The doors opened to a dark, empty floor, one that the janitor had never seen. It looked abandoned, but there was a sense of something more. The air felt heavy, and then the executive's next words hit him like a punch to the gut. "This building isn't just a gold mine, it's part of something much bigger, and you're not the only one who sees its value." The stakes had just been raised, and now he wasn't just fighting for ownership, he was fighting to survive. The air in the darkened floor was thick with tension. The executive led him through a maze of empty corridors, each step echoing in the silence. The janitor's heart raced, his mind still trying to process what was happening. What had he walked into? Why was this floor hidden away, so far from the public eye? The building, the opportunity, the conversations. It was all starting to feel far more dangerous than he had imagined. They stopped in front of a large steel door, one that appeared as if it hadn't been touched in years. The executive turned to him with a look of quiet urgency. "This is where it gets complicated. You think you want the building, but what you're really after is power. And power comes with risks." The janitor, heart pounding, nodded. He didn't care about power, he just wanted a chance. To prove that he could build something bigger, something of his own. The executive pushed open the door, revealing a room filled with blueprints, maps, and financial documents scattered across a long table. It was a hub, a nerve center for a secret operation he hadn't seen coming. "You were right about the building," the executive said. "It's a gold mine, but not in the way you think. This is a front, a way for us to launder money, hide assets. This is bigger than you ever imagined." The janitor's mind reeled. He wasn't just cleaning floors. He had been stepping over secrets every day, unknowingly part of something far darker than he could have fathomed. But before he could process it, the executive turned on him with cold eyes. "You're not here because of the building. You're here because you know too much now." Just as the janitor tried to back away, the executive's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression freezing. The words on the display were clear. Asterisk, "The buyer's been found. Get rid of him, asterisk." Before he could react, the janitor lunged, knocking the phone from his hand. The executive stumbled back, surprise crossing his face. But in that split second, the janitor made his move. He ran, heart pounding, toward the only escape he could see. The building, once a symbol of opportunity, had turned into a battleground. And as he raced for the door, the sound of footsteps behind him reminded him of one hard truth. Sometimes, the cost of success is far greater than you ever expect. The janitor's feet barely touched the ground as he sprinted through the hallways, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind him, but he didn't dare look back. His mind raced. He had no plan, no backup, and no one to trust. The building that had once seemed like a dream now felt like a trap, and the only thing keeping him going was the desperate hope that he could escape, and somehow still make it out with his life. As he reached the stairwell, a sudden crash rang out behind him. The executive's men were close, but just as he reached for the door, the janitor remembered something small but significant. There was a maintenance exit on the other side of the floor, one that no one ever used. It was his only chance. He veered off course, taking a quick turn toward the narrow hallway that led to the service door. The janitor's instincts kicked in, honed by years of knowing this building better than anyone else. He found the door, shoved it open, and stumbled into the alleyway behind the building just as a set of heavy footsteps rounded the corner. He didn't stop running until he reached the edge of the city. By the time he caught his breath, the weight of everything that had just happened settled in. He had outsmarted them, escaped, but he knew the truth now. The building was never just about power. It was a game, a chessboard where only the ruthless survived. But he wasn't done yet. With a new fire in his belly, he looked back at the skyline, the city that had once felt so distant. It was his now. He would build, not from a broom and mop, but from everything he had learned in those silent moments. The journey wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The building, the secrets, the power, he would have it all. And this time, no one would laugh at him.